So what we'll be having a look at now is the extension of Isdx, and we'll show you how you can kind of best optimize your modeling practices by utilizing this extension. So with Isdx, it combines both parametric modeling with the flexibility of freeform surfacing. So you can tie the curves and surfaces together along with your parametric curves and surfaces in there as well. So what I'm going to show you is how we can best create this handlebar sort of grip cover by using Isdx. So first of all then, if we just open up this part, and you can see we've got some imported geometry first of all, which will just kind of act as the basis for our structure when we go into Isdx. So one thing we can do first of all with Isdx is I'm just going to add some images in, which will just make it a bit easier for when I come to creating the curves. So firstly, if we add an image on the front plane, and we'll just use this front view on there. So if we bring that parallel to the screen, we can bring in this image and we can use this to sort of trace our sketches and curves to create our surfaces later on. So it doesn't have to be too accurate because we can tweak them once we've placed that. So we'll set the transparency of the background, and then we'll add another image on this top plane, like so. So then we can go, let's just bring that so we can see a little bit better, and then we can bring this next image in, like so, and again we'll position that roughly in place in there. So then we can set that transparent as well, and we've got our sort of basis structure and geometry to kind of overlay our sketches onto. So what I can start off by doing is just adding in some curves and then creating the larger sort of surfaces, all done within Isdx. So if we bring this parallel to the screen, all we need to do is go into our style feature, which is the Isdx extension, and we're brought in to a slightly different sort of dashboard, and you can see on the tree we've got our style feature on the left here, and everything we do within the style, so add your curves, your surfaces, they'll all get added into our style tree, which once we finish with that will just be one feature, one style feature in our actual model tree. So first of all then, I might want to add in a curve, so we'll add in a curve and we'll snap it to some existing geometry, like so, and we can click another point and then we'll snap to this piece over there. So we've got our first curve created, but currently that curve is very much sat on the front datum plane on there. So what I can do is, another benefit of Isdx is we have 4 windows of different sort of orientations that we can activate at the same time. So if I activate this now, you can see I've got all 4 different orientations of my model. You can see the green highlighted curve there is that curve that I've just created. So I can go in now and adjust that curve to turn it into a 3D curve rather than just that 2D planar curve on there. So what I might also want to do before I jump into that is just analyze the curvature of that. So if I activate this, like so, we can analyze the curvature of this curve in there, like so. You can see that's a really good curve we've created. So I can also do that whilst I'm actually modifying the curve as well. So if I now go to edit that curve, pick on that point there. Now I'm just going to use the existing geometry and the imagery to manipulate that curve a little bit more. So I can firstly drag these points roughly to the edge, and I can also click on here and say add a point, click on here and we'll add a point there. So we've added a couple more segments to my curve like so, and you can see we will just have to do a little bit of tweaking to the rest of these curves as well. And whilst we're working, we can actually activate the curvature analysis, so you can analyze those curves as you're kind of working with them. But that one looks pretty good, so we'll leave that on there like so. And you can flick in and out of those 4 windows at any time quite easily, and that's just in your mini toolbar just to give you quick access to it. And then we can go in and I can add my second curve on there. So we'll create a curve again. I'll snap it to this point, pick on this point, and then again we'll snap to this point over here like so. Hit OK, and now again we can go to edit that curve. So we can add a point there, a point here, and we can roughly bring those into position like so. Okay, and if we bring up the other 3 views, we can then manipulate them further by dragging those points into position like so. And you can go back and edit these at any stage. Once they're done, they're not kind of finalized, you can always go back and make more modifications if you want to. So I'm happy with that curve, and I can move on to create my first surface basically. So the curves I've created so far are just free curves, so they're not kind of tied to any planes or anything. So what I can do is, if I want a curve to sit on a plane down the center, for example, I can go set active plane and say I want to set it as the right plane. So you can see my active plane has not changed. Now I can go in and click on the curve and say I want a planar curve this time. So I can select this point, and this point, and you can see that sits on that plane on there for me. I can hit OK, create another curve, and we'll change the reference so it sits a little bit further along, so somewhere like that. And then we'll go this point here, that point there, and this point there. So now we've got another curve created on there for me. And then we'll just add the final curve on there as well. So that point, and that point. So now we've got 3 curves created, and I can finally create my first surface. So just go to the surface tool, holding Control, we can pick all 4 of these primary chains in there to give us that first surface. And then we might want to give it a bit more control by adding in those curves that I've also just created. So I can go for the internals, and it just adds a little bit more control to that surface, like so. And again, as we're modeling, we can analyze those sort of surfaces. So I can say show a reflection analysis on there, and we can analyze that as we go along, really. Okay, so that's the first surface created. We can then go in and add in some more surfaces and curves in there. So again, let's bring it parallel to the screen, and we'll add another curve using our sort of image in the background to kind of trace where we want to use those curves from. So we'll snap 2 curves on there, hit OK, and then we'll do the same on the opposite side. So another curve, you can roughly position that somewhere like that, and I can create a couple of surfaces based off of those nice and easily, like so. And then we'll create another surface based off of these 4 curves, nice and easily. And then I can slowly build up my my geometry in there. And we can notice in the style tree, each feature I've done has a feature in the model tree, or in the style tree, sorry, meaning we can go back and edit those at any stage if we wanted to. So with this now created, I can go in and we'll add another curve just to kind of finalize this top section on here. So again, we'll follow the image that I've added in. So I can go create another curve from, say, this point roughly, and then somewhere around there as well. Hit OK, and then I want to edit that now. So again, we'll use all 4 of those windows, and I can bring that in like so, and we can kind of see roughly what we're trying to create using those different views in there. So say I want to add a point on here, and we'll add a point on there as well. So we'll drag that one in ever so slightly. That one's in a pretty good position. We'll tweak it a little bit. So we'll bring that one in, this one in here, and this one ever so slightly. Still using that imagery as a sort of to trace that geometry. So we can hit OK, turn off the 4 views, and then we can go in and create our next surface in here, like so. Now with this surface created, because we're attached to another surface, we actually get the options. If we select on that little point where they join, we've got the options for the curvature sort of continuity. So I could make that surface tangent to the existing surface, and then if we go to the opposite side, we can just repeat that process on there, like so. So this curve is now tangent, surface is now tangent to the opposite surface as well. So then we can add a little bit more control when creating this final surface in the center. So again, we'll pick on these, and I want to just create a curve just going through the center, basically. So again, we'll go curve. We're still using this active datum plane, so I want to create a planar curve from this point here to this point on there, like so. Now this time, if I go to edit this curve, we can pick on these endpoints, and again, we can actually apply some sort of tangency constraints to them in there. So if we pick on these, say I want that to be surface tangent, we can modify that in there as well. And then I can also go and add a point to this surface. We can adjust that tangency on there like so. So if we hit OK, got my curve created just to give it the surface a little bit more control. I can then go and create my surface based off of the 4 main curves first of all. And then for this one, we just want to add an internal chain on there just to give it a little bit more control, and just give that surface a bit more sort of shape to it. So again, we can select these. You can see this one is automatically tangent because the curve was already made tangent. And then this one we could also modify, but I'm happy as it is for now. So you can hit OK, and we can always go back into that surface. Just double check these. That's tangent. This side is also tangent, like so. And then we can hit OK and move on to the next one. So our shape's kind of coming along using the background imagery as a sort of sketch background to follow. So the next stage is just to finish off this little bit of geometry at the bottom. So again, let's just bring it parallel to the screen, and I can go in and say I want to add a curve, make sure we're not on planar, from this point to this point, and we'll add another curve from roughly here to there. Hit OK, and we can just fill those in with a surface. So we'll pick these 4 first of all, then we'll add another surface to the opposite side. So 4 curves once more, add them all to our reference collector, and we can hit OK on that one as well. And then we basically just need to repeat what we've done at the top, essentially. So I can add another curve now from this point here, and then this point on there. Hitting OK, we can then go and edit that curve. So So we can roughly position it, but ideally we need to go into the all views that we've got. So we can activate all of those views now, and we can bring those in like so. So if we bring those in, roughly position that in place, and again we can add a couple more points to give that curve some more control. And we can just turn off the surfaces for the time being so we can see a little bit better. And we can drag those into position, and then we can go to the next view just to tweak those even more. And we can drag those into position. So that curve, as we can see from our view at the bottom right here, we've got that sort of 3D curve created on there now. So if I'm happy with that, which might need to be pulled in ever so slightly, we can hit OK. I'll turn my surface display back on, and we'll just exit those 4 views. So again, we've got that created. We can then go surface, pick on the 4 curves once more, like so, and again we can change the surface sort of continuity, and we want those to be tangent to the existing surfaces on there. So select those, we'll go tangent, and the message is just saying, do you essentially want to make the curves also tangent, which we do. So hit OK on that, and we've got our next surface created like so. So the next step would then be to kind of recreate what we've done at the top in order to create this this handle guard for the motorbike. So I can go in, and again we'll go create a curve using a planar curve, and we can select this point here to this point there, and it will always sit on that plane. I can then hit OK, go into the curve edit, and this is where we can add in our sort of tangency. So I want that to be surface tangent like so, and I'll add another point in there as well, just to modify the surface even more. So we can hit OK, and we can go in and create our final surface for the hand guard. And then because we've got another sketch in the center, we can go and add an internal reference just to give it that curvature on there like so. So we can hit OK, and we've got our surfaces created in there. So now if I just turn off my images so you can see a little bit better, we can then go back into the style and analyze what we created so far. So if we wanted to do a sort of reflection analysis, we can do that, and you can increase the lighting and the spacing of them as well, which is nice and useful. And then we can also analyze our curvature, shaded curvature, all within that tool on there. So from an Isdx perspective, everything is kind of happily done. So I can exit this tool, and you can see this feature consists of all of these surfaces and curves that we've got in here. So I can hit OK, and then you see we've got one style feature in our model tree. So what I might want to do next is use the surfaces that I've created using the style feature, and I can merge them with some existing geometry in this part. So first thing I need to do is just merge these end pieces which came from that imported geometry. So we'll join those together, and we'll do the same for this side as well. So now we've got one quilt to play around with. So I can go into this quilt now and make some modifications. So first of all, what I'll do is use a cutout here of an extrude, and use that to remove material for when it comes to putting it together on the actual motorbike handlebar assembly. So we'll just go through all, and we're removing these little sections on here so there's no interfering parts when we assemble everything together. So we can hit OK, and then we can move on to the next section. So because we've got this extra body here, which is a little accent, we need to make some sort of slot cut out for that. So what we can do is select one slot in here. We can merge those together, and if we flip the direction, we get something that's created looking like this. So now that if I activate the slot, it should fit nicely into that section. So I can then go one step further and say, let's create a cut again, and we'll remove material as a surface from this quilt, and we'll go through again. Hit OK, and now we've got our slot created, and if I go into this body and show it, it should fit in there nicely. Okay, so now we can kind of make the next steps before we go into turn this surface bit of geometry into a solid. So what we can do is add in some rounds first of all. So we'll pick on this section and this section, these two edges, and we want to give those a radius of 12. So then we can go in and apply a radius around this edge. So we can go another round on here. We want that one to be 4, and we'll make that corner like so. And then we can finally have one on the inside edge in here as well. So again, we'll apply a round, and this one just needs to be 2.5 for the time being. So we've got the majority of our geometry created, and now we can give a thickness to our quilt to turn our surface into a solid. So pick on the quilt, and then we'll just go thicken, and we just want to give that a thickness of 1.5 in there like so, and we'll just make sure we're adding to this body instead. So hit OK. We've now got our solid geometry, so there's no more quilt in there, and we can actually see this part update because it's parametric, because we have used curves, a sketch from the original geometry as a reference when we were within the Isdx. I can use this profile here and say I want to modify the overall shape of my my handle guard in there, and we should see this update nicely. So if we go back to 57, we can see as that curve updates, the geometry will update as well. So we still have that parametric control inside of the model. So then we can go back into the main assembly. We can see we've got my first handlebar in there, my handlebar guard, and then we've got the second one in there as well. So everything's still linked, and if I make any design changes, you'll see it all update in real time. Okay, so thanks for watching.